Hello and welcome back to the Sideline Live podcast. You may have noticed that I've been gone, and I have been, but I was busy working on the Paralympics and the Olympics, and even got the chance to go to Paris. But more about that later. I had a brilliant time, but I'm really excited to bring back the podcast. I have loads of athletes and coaches lined up, and I'm looking forward to get stuck in over the months ahead. I'm Orla Keeling, and what I want to do is to go beyond the highlights and the big days to find out what it really takes to make it to the top of your game. I'm going to talk to people about their passion, their challenges, and the mindset that drives success. Okay, I'm delighted to be joined by one of the legends of Gaelic football, Mr. Gary Sice. Gary, thanks for coming on.
Good evening, thanks for having me.
Before we get into everything that we're going to get into, I suppose the first question I'll throw at you, and I didn't put it on the questions list, 2025, is there another year left in the boots?
Jesus, you've gone straight for the gullet. I haven't had that conversation with the people I need to have the conversation with yet, so I can't answer it truthfully just yet.
Okay, all your competitors have tuned out. That was the only answer they wanted to hear. But I do want to talk about Corofin and the club and plenty of other things. But for you, like growing up, and I heard you speak on a few podcasts before, just around the culture, the importance of culture in clubs and even in schools. It's mad the way a lot of players talk about their school influence as well. Like Shane Walsh was talking about a principal. How important is the culture piece, as well as all the coaching and the skills and the drills, but the culture piece in schools and clubs in developing elite players?
I think it's a huge base. It's funny, I know the principal Shane was talking about, and I actually subbed in the school while he was still principal. They used to do lunchtime leagues, and those two teachers used to go out and rest the leagues, and it was a basis, and all the current Clonberne older girls would be in that school at that time as well. And they were all playing the same leagues. So you can imagine the standard of league that was going on out the match. The culture thing in the schools, I think, is huge. And I think it affords people an opportunity to build a base around behaviours for their sport life and behaviours for life in general. I've been very fortunate in the primary school I went to. It was a very small primary school. We had a principal there and she was phenomenal, huge sporting background and huge sporting individual. And we had one other woman as well called Nancy Lyons. And funnily enough, she's from Shane's club, Clonberne. She was big into sportsmanship and she was big into putting in everything you had. That was the key. You put in everything you had in the matches. And these were only primary school matches, but I can remember her vividly saying on the sideline, just give everything you have. And we were getting stocked. We were getting stocked 20 and 30 points. We were a tiny school. But it stuck in my head a little bit. And she put a bit of grit into us, I suppose. And then out of that school came Kieran Fitzgerald, Kieran Comer, Tracy Leonard, Roisin Leonard, Jason Leonard. So they were onto something. They definitely had something put into us, and I probably forgot one or two names there. But I think trying to do it at the moment in our own school and luckily all the way up from when I was 4 or 5 in the club myself, that culture of effort and working hard and doing the baseline work was bred into us, and trying to do something similar in the school and continue on the work of people that have come before me.
Yeah, as you say, all those names, it's not a coincidence. Out of interest then, for any teachers that are listening, and I'm conscious I only recorded with Stephen Poacher there about 2 weeks ago, can you give any practical examples, like even the lunchtime leagues, getting schools that might not be associated or near a GA club? What's the kind of practical advice or tips you'd give?
Yeah, so generally at the moment the kids are playing soccer out in the yard, and then we'd be down there. Myself and Jason are in the same school, and we'd be trying to. Alan Larkin's there. We're trying to talk to the kids around their behaviours, even on the soccer pitch. I know it's only a game of soccer at lunchtime, but not to be looking for frees, not to be crying about handball, not to be whinging about the ball went wide. Oh, he did this, she did that. Just to be getting on with the game. And if someone scores a cracker of a goal, celebrate with them. And if someone pulls off a crack and save, celebrate with them. And just keep going. You got fouled, get up and get on with it. Those are all small little bits, but then they can be transferred across onto the pitch when we get out there after Christmas. And even like saying to one or two of the stronger kids, can you assist more? Can you try and get somebody else to score a goal? Those little bits can be fed in all the time. I was up in the first and second class yard today, and there was 23 young lads on a postage stamp playing a game of soccer, and they started off roaring and shouting. By the time the game was over, it was nearly a silent bar, an odd hard tackle going in, but they had started already to start going at just a game. just play the game. It ended up 12-11 or something. But like they were just playing the game, and every single goal wasn't an All Ireland final miss. It was just, hurry, he scored a goal. Let's kick it out quick. Come on. And I think them little bits can be fed in. They can be brought on then and developed further.
It reminds me of someone said recently, it was like sport is the vehicle that teaches you life lessons. And as you were saying that, I was like, well, there's resilience, there's work ethic, getting on with it. That really is what you're instilling in the kids.
You're trying to, yeah. And like, I have a group at the moment. They're in sixth class. Really, really talented group. I think they're going to be a very important group for our club as well going through. And I think in the last maybe 15, 16 months, I think they've been in every final they could possibly be in, and they've lost them all by less than 2 points. And the first day back in school this year, they're on to me going, right, when we back training, what's going on? What are we going to do? They're phenomenal group. They're brilliant guys and girls in it as well. There's some brilliant characters in it. But they've already learned that it's on to the next game. And that's not to do with me, it's to do with the coaches in the club and whoever's working with them in the club at the minute, because they're so hungry to play again and do it better and get on with it. So it's a lovely thing to see in kids.
What should coaches emphasise with young players that kind of start progressing when they're the likes of 12, 13, 14, development squads kind of come in, that have talent and have potential but just need that bit of a steer? What do you think coaches should really be emphasising with them?
There's two big things you mentioned there, and the first one is the age group, the 12, 13 age group, and then the second thing you said was development squads. I have a bugbear about the development squads. I think at the 12, the 11, 12, 13 age group, they're starting to stretch, they're starting to get bigger. And I think the emphasis should still be on skills. I think teaching them the left, the right, teaching them the weight of the hand pass, the weight of the kick pass, teaching them to find space, teaching them to assist more. They're still in that ecocentric kind of mindset of, I have to get my own score. And if you can get them to start playing more like a team, that's what you're looking for, to assist more and to do that hard basic work of get a blocking, put values on the stuff that's going to stand to them in 3, 4, 5 years time, and help them to develop into, hopefully, into senior players. The development squad stuff, they're going to have knockbacks over that period as well, and that's the resilience piece, and teaching them that because you didn't get on that squad or didn't get in that position or that team, you have to go back and try again and try again and try again and try again. And that's not easy for everyone. I get that, but it's a big part of that. They're going to move on to secondary school. They're in a much bigger pond, a lot more players. A lot of our lads will go to Jarlath's and Tuam, and they're going to go to where there's not 16 kids, there's probably 65 kids for that one team. And they're going to have to learn to be way more resilient and get stuck in. And hopefully the little bits that they've talked about up to now will stand to them. I think the coaches have a tough job. I think life around them kids at the moment is very complicated as well. And I think for any coach out there at the moment who has a 12 or 13 or 14-year-old stand in front of them, you need to be a safe place for them to go. And they need to know that you're going to back them even when they make mistakes and things don't go to plan, and get them to come back next Tuesday and next Tuesday and next Tuesday. And I think if you can do that, you'll probably be doing them a big favour. And I think the game will develop for them once they have that base.
And it's funny when you mention that, because when you see that the likes of those groups that stay together, generally they eventually find success. It's funny because they enjoy it and they've a nice bunch, not all the time, but even I heard at a coaching conference recently, it was like you might have 1 or 2 players that progress from your club team to a Galway panel or a Dublin panel, but it's what about that other 24 kids that you have? What are you doing for them? It's not just about elevating Gary and Orla, it's about the other kids and having a balance across. And even as you say, the resilience piece is big. Like Anya McNamara in DCU has her rocky road theory for all elite players. Generally they've had a setback at some point, not all the time. Some people have a very clear path to the top, but for you kind of growing up, what was your rocky road all the way to where you are now?
Oh, I was no superstar coming up. I came out of a small school, probably the only one of my age group that came out of the school I was in, and then landed into Corofin training and realised after 5 minutes that I wasn't what I thought it was down the yard at home. Wasn't overly athletic, wasn't overly big, but I had a good understanding of the game, and I wanted to play. I really wanted to play. So would have made squads all the way up along, would have done fine, but I wouldn't have been anywhere near the top 5 or 6 players. I was in groups of Mikey Meehan and these guys, so you needed to be fairly elite to match up. Made my minor squad, made my under 21 squad, and then would have found finding my position was a hard one for me. Ended up playing cornerback as my debut at Galway, and then I was moved around a good bit. I was in a very strong club team at the time as well, and trying to break into that, I found it hard. And those things that maybe came easy enough early on, that initial setback, and then maybe on and off, a team now and again here and there, and those things, I found them hard. And maybe because I wasn't mature enough to take it on the chin and realize that I hadn't done enough, or I wasn't able to see outside my own bubble as to what was actually going on and not fix it. But those little bits definitely stood to me then as I went along. I left the Galway panel at 28. Just had to get out of there, and when I did, I went back to Corofin, and we won our Club All Ireland, so it wasn't a bad move, I suppose. But those little bits will definitely stand to you. They're all little bits, but they would have helped with resilience over time. No different to the majority of players, I'm sure. But they're all little bits that would have definitely helped me along the way.
Did it ever click then for you that you were a talented footballer? And I asked that because some players say, well, it never really clicked. I just worked really hard, and Mike Quirk gave me a great line. Talented is just another word for hard working. When did it click for you? You kind of mentioned there you're in and out and trying to find a position.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like I would have thought I was okay. I was fairly good. I'll never forget it. The first 2 days or 3 days I landed in Jarlath, and I think there was 93 fellas lined up on a line with Father Oliver Hughes in front of us. Tried to pick a first year squad, and didn't make the first team on the first squad. Mike Meehan put the piece of paper on the board. I didn't start, and that was my first setback. And I was like, okay. And in fairness to Father Oliver, he drove hard work into us. The pitches were muck. There was no grass, so it was pure and utter work ethic and effort. And I tweaked fairly quick that if I could just put in get stuck in here, I was in with a shot. Eventually got a shot at that, and I think that kind of stuck with me the whole way through. I didn't feel comfortable being towards the back of any running group. I didn't feel comfortable not putting full whack into it, and I understood very quickly that if you're going to be doing something with this, you're going to have to be near the top at all times. Whether that's the 1st of January fitness test or whether that's going to be come the end of a championship, you're going to have to be towards the top. So I understood the work ethic thing fairly quick, and then luckily enough, I had a bit of football talent around it, and that kind of helped me along the way. But I did the work ethic thing did twig with me fairly quick, and I knew I was going to have to do that because there was so many good footballers around me that I wasn't talent or whatever that is wasn't going to be enough for me. Definitely not.
You mentioned the motivation there. I think Brian Fenton had a great line in his retirement interview in the Sunday Times. He was talking about his motivation was to impress Jim. Was your motivation, as you mentioned there, was it avoiding being uncomfortable, whether that was at the back of the group or not being picked?
Oh yeah, and I think that came from a very, very, very young age. And my dad would tell me that I would literally be losing the head out in the garden, losing a one-on-one with him out in the garden. So we were taking shots back and over at 5, 6, 7 years of age, and I would lose the rag. Sure, he beat me 10-9 every single time to get that out of me. Like competitive streak, it's still there now, unfortunately, in a way. It has its upside when you're on a sporting field for sure, but to have that in you all the time is not necessarily the most wonderful thing. I would have found it very hard to relax. Still find it very hard to relax. Find it very hard not to be on, not to be thinking about it, not to be trying to train for the next thing, and that. I'd say I wouldn't always be the most comfortable person to be around. Some lads would like to peak and trough through the season. I couldn't figure that one at all. Wasn't able for it. And probably would have been hurtful for me through maybe the early part of my Galway career. I could have been doing with some rest here and there, and I wasn't getting it. And that was my own fault. So the competitive thing would have been there all the time. Maybe I could have used it better. Looking back, I definitely could have, but at the same time, without it, I wouldn't have been at it. So it was a pro and con all in one.
Yeah, and it's funny, I had a chat with a player before about that, and it was all about work ethic and working hard, and it was trying to manage load. And then it was just a conversation about, you've gotten this far because all you do is work really hard and train all the time. But to go and to keep going, it's we need to kind of relax a bit. And she was like, I just can't turn it off. And it's funny, it's just a personality thing.
It is a personality thing, and I think the other side of it is too. I think I was most comfortable, and I probably still am. I'm most comfortable when I'm in that train of mode, that mode of training and that mode of getting to a goal. So if a 6 or 8 week gym program, I'm looking forward to the 6 and 8 weeks because I know I'm in that mode for the 6 or 8 weeks. I'm probably uncomfortable outside of that. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I think I enjoy 5-a-sides, randos, and January, whereas much crack as first round championship at times. I was looking forward to all those things, and probably made a lot of lads uncomfortable, but at the same time, it probably had to rise a few levels. And then I was surrounded by people that were like that too. There was a good few in my circle and still in my circle that worked like that. So that was probably why I felt more comfortable doing that than the opposite, I think.
Do you think that's why you're still playing? It's that competitive streak, and as you say, I get the sense you really enjoy the really hard slogs in January in the gyms, as well as the nice summer championship games.
Um, the still playing thing is a funny one because um, you talk to I started after the county final this year, and they're all people I would have played with, and they were all envious of the fact that I was still playing. And I would have spoke to people after the All Ireland in 2020, and they would have said to me, "Whatever you do, don't stop. If you're physically able to keep playing, go keep going." Like, and I was kind of like, "Right, fair enough." But I got injured in 2023. Pinched the nerve in my back. I lost quite a lot of feeling in my left leg and my foot and my arm. And that finished my season. And I sat and watched county final. It was the first one we'd lost in a long time. And I was kind of on, no, I think I'm okay here now. And started to come back. And when I got myself sorted out, back out on the pitch, I wanted to play. And I just like playing, just like training, and I like learning about it and figuring it out and testing myself. And it was a risk, and it's a risk of my age all the time. There's an ego side of it and there's a physical side of it. The ego side is you're going to get checked regularly because you're going to be dealing with animals at 23, 24, 25, 26, 27 along there. And then the other side of it is that you could do yourself an injury, and that could be ended, finished at bang over on Tuesday night. So that was always there in the background. But I enjoy the game, to be honest with you. I enjoy the slog of it, and I enjoy the competitive nature of it. I just enjoy playing for Corofin, to be quite honest with you. And I like being part of a Corofin setup. That was probably the biggest thing in the whole lot of it.
I wasn't actually going to ask you that, and the reason why I asked was not actually because I've heard you say before why, but does it bother you when people say, and even I kind of emphasise that you're still playing? Does that bother you at all?
Sure, no, it's a compliment. It's an absolute compliment, to be honest with you. I'd be foolish to say it bothers me because it doesn't really. And most of the people that are asking the question, they don't fully understand what they're asking. So it doesn't bother me. I know you do, and I know you're asking it for the right reasons. Or I'm going to give you the high five for that. But no, it doesn't. It really doesn't. It really doesn't bother me. And that it actually, I'd say when I answer it like that, it probably annoys a few people that have asked me. So I get a bit of joy out of that too.
Good. Well, I see it as a very simple answer. You enjoy it, and in anything in life, we have to keep doing what we enjoy. And that's kind of the way I see it.
Yeah.
I will ask you.
Not every night.
Yeah. I do want to ask you about Corofin. I've heard you do kind of interviews before, and they want to know every little detail. So I won't ask you exact details, but I will expect a few, Gary. But what's it like when everyone's aware in Corofin that it's kind of this microscope being put on the club of like everyone's looking, and that is the gold standard. It's what yous are doing. What's it like being in there and knowing that everyone else is looking at us and trying to replicate what we did or what we have done? I'm not saying you're done yet.
I don't take much notice of it, to be quite honest with you. I think the part that people, I think people are looking at it, right, and they're only probably looking at the tip of the iceberg. They're looking at the end product, and as long as they keep looking at that, I'm happy enough. They don't really take into account the basic hard work that's involved. I think it's great. It's lovely for people to be looking at what we do and how we do it or whatever else. But I honestly don't give it too much thought because it's too much. That'll take headspace that I don't have. And the headspace I have goes into trying to maintain whatever it is we have and whatever it is we're doing, and trying to help those around me to be better and to try and better myself. So I don't give too much space to that at all, really, to answer.
How important was Frank Morris in all of this?
Oh, how blessed was I to have Frank Morris around me as a coach. I still have him around me as a coach, and still talk to him, I'd say, most days of the week. He's picking up his grandkids at the school gate, and inevitably it turns to football within seconds. Outside of my father, probably the biggest influence in my football career. A man who had and has enormous amount of patience with me, and has influenced aspects of my life outside of football as well. And there just isn't. I couldn't explain how big he is and how big he was in everything to do with my football. Just an absolute icon and key component to whatever it is I've managed to do so far.
How does his approach contrast with Paul Caganan?
Yeah, I looked at that question and I gave a fair bit of thought to it. It's a massive one.
I will give
One of
credit to Joni Fox. That's not my question. He's the one that threw it in.
an awful lot. Frank, when Frank would have got a hold of us, it would have been all skills, and it would have been trying to develop the body and try to develop the hands and the feet of both sides balanced, and explaining when and how to use this kick, and giving us tools, and then giving us situations to use those tools. I don't think that Paul is an awful lot different to that. I think that Paul would be identifying principles of play that his team would need, and then giving them the tools to carry out them principles of play. The language around it might be different, but I think there will be a lot of similarities in what they did and how they did it. And then when it comes down to the person, the charismatic nature of both of them and their ability to hold the attention of 25, 12-year-olds, 11-year-olds, 10-year-olds, 6-year-olds, and get them to have a go at the skill being produced will be similar as well. I did think about it a lot, and I have been around Paul enough to see him do sessions, but I can also remember the feelings of Frank do the sessions, and it wouldn't be that dissimilar in many ways, to be honest with you.
How do you feel then when you brought that up? How do you feel then during one of those sessions?
Oh, you're glued to Frank. You're absolutely glued to him, and you're trying to impress him. So it's funny when you mentioned Brian Fenton there. I didn't have the skill set to impress Frank Morris. That's the reality of it. And I would have been one of these lads as well who'd be trying outside the boot and trying bits and pieces. I'd say I would have infuriated him, to be quite honest with you, at times. And he would regularly see me coming up along doing our 10s training or 12s training, or be kicking a ball, and he'd say to him, "Don't do that. Don't do what he did." So I'd say he probably would have seen football in me, and he would have known that I could have done what he was asking. A lot of the time I would have, and then I would have tried little bits and pieces as well that wouldn't have worked out. I would have infuriated him from a kicking point of view a lot when I was younger, because I would be trying to kill a pass, and often it wasn't the one to do. But I'd say at the same time, the feeling of being at a Frank training session is you would touch loads and loads of ball, lots and lots of ball, and the praise and the warmth and the enthusiasm and the charismatic nature of him, but you'd be dying to go training, dying to get back to it, and then play a game at the end and try and show off them skills that he'd spent the first 40 minutes of the session developing. And what a place it was, and what a place it is to be when he's talking football with you.
It sounds like he was doing game-based scenarios before that became a bit of a buzzword. Is he the coach that has brought out the best in you?
It's a big one. It's a big question to ask. So if you're going to go about it, as in, did he develop football in me and develop all that side of it? Yes. Then possibly yes. If you're going to talk about who got the best output out of me from taking all those abilities and making them work, then probably his son is probably the man to talk about. He would have had a huge bearing in there as well. And then their father, Oliver Hughes, would have got an awful lot out of me as well. Liam Salmon is another one. I had him, lucky enough to have him as a coach, and I think he would be in a similar mindset on football as well. And then Kevin Walsh, towards the end of my career, probably would have had a fair bearing on him as well. Mismatch all that together, and I've been fairly fortunate to have come across all these people, to be quite honest with you.
When you mentioned Dave, what was it like having him around and having a genius with you, a football genius?
I was very fortunate. So Dave probably would have had an influence on me very early on. So I can remember Dave coaching our Raftery Pup team. So our Raftery Pup is a school's competition here in Corofin. Dave would have been probably 15, 16 maybe, and I would have been in primary school, and he would have taken our school because no one else would have taken him. And he would have been doing bits and pieces then. But my first real connection with him would have been, he was taking over our under-21 team, and we would have been worse than useless at the time. Very bare bones of the team, would have been one of the weakest in the club. Wouldn't have won any underage titles at all, and we managed to scrape out an under-21 title. At that stage, then I would have been playing for seniors as well. So I would have been in and around there, and was a joy to play with him. And then, of course, how lucky was I to be coached by him as well at senior level. So he's had a major influence on everything that I am football-wise, for sure.
How do you develop that deeper understanding and that game intelligence that the likes of Dave has, and how do you teach that to kids and teenagers?
I think you have to be absolutely demented mad about football to want to go that deep and to understand it. I think not specifically about Dane, but in general, if you want to get to that depth, you have to be studying all the time. You have to be looking at the game all the time, and then you have to be willing to open your mind to all the aspects of the game that are out there, not just your own personal beliefs on it. And then the coaching side of it, like some people have a way with them, some people have a natural inclination towards something, and then with that, if you're willing to develop yourself, Dave is down at our under six training. He's training the under 10 girls, and then he's going to senior training, and he's in between. So you can imagine the range of abilities required to deal with all the individuals he's meeting. And then there has to be a humility there, whereby you have to be willing to change yourself and change your cues and change your way of dealing with people on the hoof as well, and all that comes into it. So um it's a huge range and a huge ability to have.
Yeah, and even you mentioned stuff like humility and even the range of the how broad that is to go from under 10 to senior. Like that's really interesting. Can you give us an insight into even the culture within a group that wins 4 Club All Irelands? Like that must be, when we talk about that buzzword of high performance, geez, this must be high performance or something.
Yeah, it's funny. We came close a few times before we got to 2015 against Loughneel. We lost a semi final in extra time against St. Gall's. They won the All Ireland. We lost to Kilmacud the following year. They were good now. They were very good, and they won the All Ireland. And then when we came back and beat Vincent's, and that was our watershed moment. We went to Croke Park, did very well against Loughneel. I think folks gave us a stonking after that. We had a meeting after the Crokes game, and one of our most driven characters, Kieran McGrath, spoke at that meeting, and it wasn't about getting back to a standard. It was about how come we're not winning more All Irelands. And the room went quiet, and there was no laughing, there was no joking, nothing else. And then we set off on a mission and a journey that was fantastic. Kevin O'Brien was our manager at the time as well, and he deserves huge kudos for the alignment piece, and then some of the coaches that we had as well, and some of the people around. The whole lot of it around it was just driven towards high performance, and it wasn't about All Irelands. It was about being better the next day. And then you had people like Kieran Fitzgerald and, as I said, Kieran McGrath and Mike Farrer, and there wasn't many there that weren't there for the right reasons, and that was it was a very privileged position we were in to be around at that time.
What does that culture teach you about sport and even life, even when you say there, everyone's there for the right reason?
Well, the thing about I was fortunate. So myself and Adam Burke were in an underage group coming up that we didn't achieve much as a group. We came out of a team that we ran up against really good club teams at the time, and either side of us there was 2 All Ireland failures. So Fitz's team were an All Ireland failure, and so did Mike Farrer's team, and then we were mismatched into them. And then into the back of that, you came Liam Silk and Jason Leonard and Martin Farrer and these guys, Conor Cunningham. So it all came together into a lovely concoction, and everybody in there, I think, was there because they wanted to be a Corofin footballer, but they wanted to be a successful Corofin footballer. And then from that led internal drive, and we were all aiming towards. We wanted to be the same as the 1980. We wanted to win a Club All Ireland. And then once we got motoring and we realised that, okay, we can do stuff here, it just became a lifestyle choice. It wasn't we go back training there now in February and sure we'll have a cut of the county final again. It just didn't stop. It just was what you're doing, and everything else got put aside, and we were just training and we were enjoying each other's company immensely, and we were driving it on, and you just didn't step out. You just didn't. There was no need for a big stick in the background. There was just it was almost peer on peer. It was almost like if you did something or you stepped out of line, you were really out of line. You looked like you were out of step completely. So it turned into that kind of a culture, and it was, as I said, it was a very special place to be.
Yeah, I think it was a GAA video I think you did a couple of years ago. I think it was some launch or something. It was interesting. You said you're about 21 or 22 and you didn't let anything get in the way of football, and I think you named it later on as football extremist. And I spoke to Andy Moran about this, and he said he had the same, and he reckons that to be an elite or a top player, you do need a couple of years of that football extremist mentality. Would you agree?
Yeah, I came toe to toe with Andy a few times in his mode as well. The two of we would have had a fair bounce off each other, and I came out the wrong end a couple of times. Yeah, I think once I got a taste of the senior in Corofin, and I started to get a taste of it, and I was around people like Michael Plummer and Kieran Fitz, Damien Burke. So these guys were on the Galway panel, and I was around them a good bit, and I could see benefits of all the what they were doing. And next thing, it just started clicking for me. Uh, we won a All Ireland 2021 with Galway. I was a year young on that, and I can remember Peter Ford saying to me, "It's very simple. You need to put on X amount of kgs." And I look at you then, and I found out where the Galway team were training, and I went to that gym and I trained there 6 days a week, flat to the mat. Got into college, played Sigerson. That's all I was doing. I was absolutely demented. I was looking at some of the guys I played with and going 21, and they were in around the senior panel. I was driving past Loch George to go to college every day, and I was looking in at the door going, I have to get in there. Like, I can do fine once I get in there. Got in there then, and I suppose really that if I had been a bit more chilled out, I probably would have been a more coach, but I would have been able to take in more things. But again, like the access to people I had, Des Ryan was our S&C at the time. Like, what a man! He ended up over in Arsenal, and he's back in UIG. He was phenomenal. Peter Ford was very, very good to me. Give me loads of opportunities, but it definitely was. That's all it was. There was nothing. There was no personal life. There was no relationships. There was no ability to. There was no ability to do anything else. This is all it was. And when I rolled out of Galway, it was rolled into Corofin at full steam ahead, totally tied into the whole thing. I wouldn't say I was fantastic to be around by any means, but again, it was a huge learning block for me around who I was and what I was going to do. And then maybe that went on for Corofin lads will probably tell you it's still like that. But yeah, it was a big period in my 20s. And it was Andy's probably not wrong. It probably was a necessity in order for me to develop into something that could be high achieving.
Yeah, and that's what we spoke about. It was even, when you get to college, it's that opportunity that players get, that to be able to be a football extremist, because you have that bit of time, obviously depending on the course you have, but generally you do have that time then to be a football extremist. And college really sometimes, not all the time, makes or break a player, because it could make you with all the time you have, or it could break you because you don't have that discipline or that ability to just focus on football.
Yeah, it's funny. I did arts in Galway, which was grand, but I took a year out, and actually the year out I took in before I went to Mary I was where I ended up doing the most developing. I had no distractions at all. All I was doing was eat, sleep, repeat. That's all that was happening. I was working in between, and it was a real opportunity for me to just train. That's all I was doing, and it put me in a position to actually drive on a bit. But that block for me was a huge learning block around. And some of the people I met in that block as well in college was a real eye opener around the standards required. So yeah, I would agree with Andy completely that not for everyone, but for me anyways, and for the way I was at the time, it was a necessity, unfortunately.
Yeah. What mindset or advice then would you give young players in terms of maximising time and their sessions? Like, even I think of kids that are in sixth year that are trying to balance books and everything, but they might have training 3 days a week. But how do you maximise those 3 sessions a week, or whatever, how many sessions you're doing a week?
I think looking back at it now, I would say to them to give themselves every opportunity to be in a good space to go to that session. So get their hydration and their sleep and all those things in order so that they could enjoy the hour, rather than turning up there completely fatigued and head wrecked and fried. That they take that hour as an opportunity to express themselves and enjoy themselves and test themselves, challenge themselves, go into it in a good space. I think if I had my time over, the biggest tool I would have given myself as an 18 or 19-year-old would be a journal. I didn't have the access to one, or didn't have the ability in my space that time. Paul does an awful lot of the journaling stuff, and I've been using his journals over the last 2 or 3 years. I found them 4 years actually now extremely beneficial. Pre-training, planning, reflecting afterwards, a clarity around what I wanted to do that evening, a training a reflection process afterwards. It's funny, we were doing a well-being thing at school today with the kids. I've fifth class this year, and we were actually doing that piece on reflection for the last 10 or 12 weeks of school, and it was very interesting to see what they came up with. But I think if I was to tell them one thing, it would be that it'd be to journal around their training, and then to actually use the information. I think any coach at the moment who's looking to develop people, which is what you should be trying to do, a journal would be a key tool for that development.
It's funny, about 10 years ago, the sign of a modern intercounty footballer would be the physique. And I think now it's the sign that they have the notebook going, walking in
Yeah,
training.
if you're not into a meeting with a notebook, you're fit. You waste your time. Forget about it.
Yeah. When you talk about journaling, like, really interested to hear a bit. I think everyone has their own way of doing it. I do a bit, but it's different to what way you do it. I'd say, what is journaling then for people there, for teenagers at that age that are listening, that are like, geez, well, if Gary did that and he recommended me to do it, what should they actually do?
Uh, my process would have started maybe in 2018, 19, and it would have started out of a need on a personal level rather than a sporting level. And I found it as a place not to dump all my feelings and cry into a pillow kind of an effort. It was actually a place for rationalizing thoughts and seeing when they appeared and what they were appearing for. And then when I came to the sporting side of it, it was a way of tracking my thoughts coming up to big games. It was a way of tracking my thoughts before and after training. It was a way of the piece that was missing in my early 20s around the ego of not telling myself I was doing really well if I wasn't. It was a realistic check-in. So using all the information at my disposal to see where I'm actually at. Was that coach right to give me a bollocking there? Because if he wasn't, I'll go back to him and I'll tackle him. But then when I wrote down it after it cooled off, did my reflection piece at 10 o'clock on a Tuesday night, I realised that, you know what, for the 5 minutes before that, I was carnage. Kicked away 3 balls, 2 fouls, and I was mouthing at someone who were not to do with it at all. So that's where the journaling thing came into the process for me. Clarification on my own thoughts, I suppose, around training would be the clearest way to put it.
It's even, I think, one of the Armagh lads, I can't remember who it is, so I won't try guess, but they're even saying they tracked every session they did. And that was nearly, to me, it came across as a confidence thing of, when I step on out past the white line, that I've done everything in my power to be so prepared. And even the journal, just, I think they kept, like, they had 5 or 6 journals, maybe 7. They had them all on a shelf because, again, it was just that sign of money in the bank.
I have a few journals, yeah, and I have them. I would have had specifics though going into sessions. So I think Paul originally sat down with me and went through what the journal should be for. And I wouldn't say he taught me how to journal, but he gave me a few tools on how to make best use of it. And one of the things would have been that being specific for my goals at training. So not just saying I'm going to train hard. What does that look like? So being specific around, if we were looking at I don't know, if the tackle was what we were looking at for that block for that 6 weeks, that I was going to make sure that I didn't get caught with a high hand that night. So going into the session, I was already aware that I was going to be reflecting on the fact that I can't have a high hand tonight. I don't want to get a hand around the neck. So how do I not do that? I need to get down lower. I need to make sure my feet are well placed. I need to make sure that if it's someone coming really, really fast, that I've adjusted quicker. Small bits like that definitely would have helped what I was doing. If I had been told the 2 sessions before that, no long, we're not kicking long because they played 2 sweepers. That was my goal, not to get a ball taken away by a sweeper being kicked inside. So specific things would have been a huge help to me. And as it's gone on over the last 3 or 4 years, it definitely has helped focus myself after a long day of work or a long day of whatever it was I was doing. It was every help.
Yeah, brilliant. I love that. And I've never actually heard someone talk about this going into such specifics before. It was just go out, train, arrive early, and ask my coach for feedback, or do 10 kicks before a session. But as even you say, like, even those tiny things, that's fascinating.
Well, I don't know if there would be for everybody. I think it goes back to the football mentalist that Andy Moran was speaking about. But I do find that structure helps, and I do think specific parts of the season require specific kinds of detail. And it was a big help for me going forward.
That's I think the purpose of talking to people in every single podcast is you get the different approaches and you get the different insights that it might work for Gary but it won't work for me, but you might pull something that'll spark something else. When we're talking about this, and this is one of the topics I want to get into with a lot of guests, but high pressure moment, last 5 minutes of a game or going into an All-Ireland Club final, what's your internal dialogue like in those big pressure moments? And again, this will be so different for every individual.
Yeah, again, I had a good look at that question because it wasn't until kind of, I wouldn't say, when the career's been going on so long at this stage, now we call it the middle of my career. So early on, it would have been man marking, would have been my role, and it would be tracking and playing as a defender. So the pressure side of that was don't get cleaned, don't get caught for 4 scores, don't get dummy soldiered in an All-Ireland final or whatever it was. So it's different mindset, and it was blot someone out. And as then my career progressed, it was to be more creative. And I think I found that harder actually, because I wouldn't say it was more pressure on me, but there was an expectation that I would create and get things done in my own head, not necessarily in everybody else's head. And one of the things that actually helped me with that was free taking, believe it or not. And that came around by accident. So we had Michael Meehan, Corey Joyce, these guys on my side, we call it, in Galway. So never in my wildest dreams did I think you're going to kick it free for Galway. And then the other side of it was we had Alan O'Donovan in the club. And like, it didn't matter where the ball landed inside the 45, it was going over the bar or Alan there. So the opportunity only came along when Alan finished up kind of maybe towards the end of his career. He allowed me to take frees on that side only because I started kicking them with Galway. So I actually kicked frees with Galway first before I kicked them with Corofin. That part, the pressure then kind of eased because I spoke to Pádraig actually on it about it, and he said to me, if you've done your frees properly and you're thinking about this properly, you can start a game +3 because you'd have kicked your 3 frees. And after that, then until you kick bonus is going to be superb from a force point of view. So you could end up +6 or +7. And all of a sudden, it just changed the look in it. And talking to free takers now, they're in a privileged position because it gives them the opportunity to settle into a game. Now, you might get a stinker of a day where you miss, and I have had them. I had one last year against Bridget's, missed 2, what I would call, not sitters, but ones that I should be banking at that level. And that can go the other way as well. But it was a very interesting way to look at it. And then when the pressure moments came, I was happy enough because I had my work done. I knew I had my frees taken. I knew I had the work done in the free. So I didn't see them as a pressure moment. I saw them as my opportunity to get +3. And it was probably a greedy thing to think about. But I think when you're in that position as a free taker, as a forward, that greed is no harm sometimes.
That's brilliant. I really like that because it reminds me of 2 guests I had on, one being Sal Mulroy, and he again changed his mindset around free taking. He's one of the best plays ball kickers in the game, and he was talking about when he lines up for a free, it's like another score for Sam. And it reminds me of another guest I had on recently, Dr. Jo Brown. She's performance coach for Noah Lyles. She was talking about being with an athlete before a race, and she was like, are you ready? Or she asked him like, are you ready? Or is there anything else you could have done? And if she says, if the answer is blank, then you're ready. And even as you say, going into a game, have you done everything from a free taking perspective? Yes, okay, you're +3. And I think that's brilliant. I really like that from Pádraig. I actually read the chapter you did for Paul's book, Be the Best You Can Be in Sport, the little piece on free taking. So I want to actually get into that with you, and even the free kick process or science. Do you think we're kind of over talking it these days with all the different workshops and things you see online with free taking in GA?
I'm probably the worst candidate to talk to about this because I'm not natural at anything I do. I can't exaggerate. Frank Morris would have told me not to kick that free when I was younger. I think I'm probably a manufactured free taker in that I got an opportunity. I probably was a decent kicker from wing back, and that gave me an opportunity to kick frees. When I look back now at the first year or 2 I took frees, there's no rhyme or sense or reason to what's going on. They're going over, but they're all in different trajectories. They're all in different angles. They're all different foot shape, body shape, hand shape. I wouldn't say there's any consistency to it at all. And then I think in the middle section and towards the end of my career, I could tell you as I pick up the ball what's going to happen next. What's going to happen with the ball, how high my leg is going to finish up, where my arm is going to be, and most likely where the ball is going to go as well. And that's just down to practice. And it would have been just repeated practice, repeated, and figuring that sweet spot. And then once I found it, sticking to that sweet spot, same number of steps, same strike of the ball, same height on the ball going over the bar, and then trying to find that consistency. The real for me knowing that a free taker is doing the work, properly doing the work, and knowing what they're doing properly. I can tell by their body language as they're about to take the kick what's going to happen. And the good ones, you know before they kick it what happens. It's going over the bar, and you also know by the way a person walks up to a ball whether they have the work done or not, because their body language will tell you, I'm not too sure about this. So I think the workshops are fine, but I think it's down to the individual then, and they can get little tips and bits and pieces around it. But I do think there's an awful body of work to do on yourself personally around finding that a sweet spot for yourself.
Brilliant. Brilliant. I do want to ask just a little bit about the body language. And you were saying there before the piece where it was about if you don't have the work done, you can tell when they pick up the ball. Then if I'm confident and you see I have my work done, what do I look like? Or is it also just the way I carry myself, the look on my face? What do you see?
The whole package. You can see the way they stand. You can see the way they're holding the ball. Are they sizing up the post? Because if they are sizing up the post, they're not too sure. If you've done your work, you've done your practice. I don't care where in the world you've kicked that ball, as long as it's a GA post in front of you. If you've done your work and you're confident and you know what you're about, you'll put that ball into your process and you'll just start moving through your process and you kick it over the bar. If you're unsure about it, you're going to start sizing it up. You might see a little bit of a lean one way. You might see the ball moving from hand to hand. There might be a lace or tie. So buying a second or two to try and cool themselves down. But the good ones, the ones that are really on it and sharp and are in a good frame of form, they just don't. They go straight. They pick up the ball. They might even be on about press up. They might even be able to tell 2 or 3 people around them what's happening next because they know what's happening. They know the feeling. They're already in that mode. They know what's going to happen, so they can actually instruct 2 or 3 lads around them as to what's going to happen next. Push up because the kick out's coming. Ball's over the bar in his head. It's done. It's dusted. So I think the really good ones can give a real air of confidence off. You can nearly feel it through a television screen when they're really on it.
Yeah, that's really cool. The other 2 lines I picked up from it was about you had a great line, practice makes semi-permanent, which I 100% agree with. I hate the line practice makes permanent, doesn't, or practice makes perfect. Sorry, I hate that line. Practice makes permanent, so you better be practicing right. And the other one you said, practice is reversible. I thought that was brilliant because if you're not practicing your skills, you lose them.
Oh, 100%. Like, it's been a month since I kicked a free now, so I would not like to go out now kicking. I wouldn't like to go out against someone and take them. I'd love to get a week, and then we'll have a competition if you want. But there's a huge amount of body memory there. There's a huge amount of feeling. There's a huge amount of confidence in it, and I think to be honest with you, a lot of it is in the moment of kicking the ball. I think when you start to feel in the moment that you're hitting the sweet spot again. For most forwards that are red hot, your Samuel Rice, it'll take them a week or 2 to get up to pace, and then they'll hit that one that feels right, and the second one will come, and the third one will come, and all of a sudden they're into that frame of momentum. But I definitely think it's a skill that has to be practiced. Some lads are naturally talented, and I don't like the word. They can put a ball down and kick it off the ground with both feet. But I can guarantee you without work, they're sporadic and they're frustrating, and they're not ones you're going to say, yeah, I back him to kick it. Whereas your Samuel Rice, you're not going to back against them, are you?
No, definitely not. You had another great line as well. You were like, I took on a huge amount of info and took the rest of my career to understand it. What were you talking about there?
So there was fortunate for me throughout my career, I was surrounded by fantastic footballers, people with enormous amount of knowledge on top of enormous amount of skill. Mike Meehan was hurt at the time I started taking a free or 2 for Galway, and Mike kicked off the ground all his career. But he was able to talk to me about the spin on the ball and what different spins look like and why it looks like this going over a bar. And he actually stood over me for a little while, taking balls off my hand. I hadn't the power to kick them off the ground properly, and I was too late into my career to start learning it, so I went off my hand. Getting the ball to spin forward allowed me, once I got that consistent kick, it allowed me to kick in any kind of weather. So you see some lads are able to swing it from left to right, and that's their normal kick. But the danger in that is that you get a breeze going the wrong way, and that ball in can't travel the way you want it to. Whereas mine was more straightforward, and he said he wanted to keep the ball down. I can remember him and Jarlath's from 50 yards out kicking a ball out over a ball catcher at ease. And then when you watch him towards the middle of his career, everything hit the middle of the post, no higher than that. The reason being was control. So if you can keep the ball in the middle half of the post into the ball catcher at the back, wind or no wind, rain or no rain, you're going to be in control. The second that's going higher, you're in a spot of bother. So for me to understand all that kind of stuff, I needed to be in pressure situations. I needed kicks that were going to be tough. So it took me ages. It took me a long, long time to get the understanding and eventually feel one of those. Actually kick one, not in a training section, kick one in a championship game that mattered, into a wind, knowing if I keep this ball half up the post, it's going to be fine. That took a long time to figure out. A little bit of pain in between and a little bit of doubt, but those little bits were huge amounts of knowledge that I just took a long time to process.
Yeah, you had another great line about the interference practice kicks. So you'd kick them from when people were chatting or did different things. How do you get what were you saying? It's a front spin you were getting on the ball.
Yeah, it's just kicking off the instep. It's a hook kick that Frank Morris would have taught over and over again. Some lads will top that and it'll actually hit the crossbar. It'll go that low. And then some lads will actually hit it under it like a chip shot and go up. And it took me a long time because it wasn't a natural kick for me at all. And I actually had to change my body shape a little bit of where my shoulder was. So most people would be taught, put your shoulder to the goal, head down, hook kick. I had to turn away from the goal and come around a little bit like a rugby kicker would instead of that. But again, enough time spent down by a Clare kicking balls against the fence to figure that one out. And again, once the momentum came and I started getting into the sweet spot with it, the confidence rose and it was a nice place to be when things were going really well.
You said there yourself you weren't a natural kicker, so how do you develop a sweet spot then?
Repetitive, repeat. Come over after work on a Monday or Tuesday afternoon there, and luckily Frank might drive by or Dave might walk past you as you're taking a kick and say that leg is not coming high enough, or I think you dropped your right shoulder this way, or it literally going until you find it. You find the feeling. It might be only 30 yards out, and then knowing that you're going another 10 yards out, you don't require any more power. You just have to repeat the skill. Repeat, and then every single ball that fell in front of me anywhere at all, taking the time over it and actually making sure it was perfect practice, not just driving my foot through it and having a shot the outside of the boot. Everything that I kicked from then on was that kind of kick. So every ball I kicked, like in training, Martin Farrer was at Devonford. He'd see me lining up a kick for training and he'd walk across the front of me. Or he'd be roaring across the pitch at me, throwing footballs at me or throwing cones at me. Or if there's lads down having a stretch, I try and walk through the middle of them as I take the free. Sure, inevitably someone's going to try and catch your foot or pass a comment. But those were all little bits that were going to ironclad the process that I was trying to build up.
Yeah, class. I'm conscious of time. I'm going to try get through the next couple of questions. Key pillars for you from when you look at players, what makes an exceptional player? I'm not just talking about the physical, the skill, but what are the kind of pillars? I think Kieran Donaghy or Ray Boyne said there was 4 before. Just interested to hear your thoughts.
Well, there's a physical and a technical, there's tactical, and then for me, a big part of a player is emotional. I think a coach that can tap into the emotions of a player and understand their peaks and troughs, their needs and their wants, you can really unlock something in a player when you can tap into that side of it. I think I definitely will be that kind of a player, or I was that kind of a player. I don't know if I have that in me anymore. The coaches that would have got the most out of me would have realised that in me and would have pushed the button at the right time and would have put an arm around the shoulder at the right time and kick up the arse when I needed it. And they would have been experts at doing that. I think the elite, the absolute elite, are a mix of all that. And I think their biggest thing is they have a huge onus and a huge responsibility and a huge necessity built into them for performance on big days. They can identify the championship game and they understand that this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And I think the elite players have a huge inner responsibility around performing on the big day, on that championship day. I think that's the difference between your work hard guy and your guy who's there training every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday night and is killing himself in the gym, and the guy who's doing that and understands his responsibility to be the best, to be, okay, here we go, 60 minutes challenge football. Therein lies the difference.
And it's funny you bring it up when we get so driven by data and actual physical measurements. I remember I was speaking to a coach in Saracens. I was over there a couple of weeks ago and he said at half time we asked them for their feel of the game. And even you mentioned there a couple of times your feel of the game, your feel of the kick and the emotional side of it. Is that something that overlooked? Do you think those little finite details and the emotional side of things?
Yeah, I think there might be a bit in it. I think we sometimes forget in the GA that we are an amateur sport hanging off the west of Europe, and we are only starting to, the last 20 years, develop our game. Before that, we were very tribal and rural and a bit of madness thrown in there, and occasionally a sporting great will pop out. But I think we're probably trying to learn how to use data at the minute. I think there's a lot of different noise out there. I think some lads there's very few, to be honest with you, in the country that can use that data responsibly and actually use it for a group that know what they're helping the group with the data, not paralysing the group. And there's very, very few that can do that at the minute. I think we're going to learn a lot in the next 20 years about how to do it. I think you're going to find that the well-being side of it, the emotional side of it is going to become more and more important. And I think how people are helped around the training side of it, and then eventually on how to perform on game day is going to become fairly substantial in our games. I would put a huge weight on it, and I think we don't fully understand it just yet. There's still a rawness to the GA. There's still a bit of madness. Maybe that's the beauty in it too. Maybe we don't want to lose that.
Yeah, that's a good assessment as well. What I will ask you is, in terms of, I ask guests this a lot, what is your definition of success, and even how has it evolved up to now for you, Gary?
Personally,
or from a football or personal perspective?
I suppose the child in me will tell you that football success is a cup. That's the reality of it. I think anyone who's playing adult sport and putting as much into it as intercounty players do, or high level senior club players do, you're fooling yourself if you're not talking about winning. That's adult sport. Let's be called a spade a spade. The scores are taken for a reason. The stadium is full for a reason. It's about winning. Personal success to me, emptying myself would be the way I would describe it. I would try to do it in everything I do. I don't succeed in everything I do. I don't succeed in emptying myself into everything I do, but I would aim at the start. If I commit to a project or commit to something, I would like to see it flourish. I'd like to see it go really, really well. And I'd like to think I played my part in whatever it is I committed to do. That would be my understanding of it.
Can you give us an insight into consistency and how to build it? I had a great chat with Cora Staunton about it, and even when you mentioned their commitment, like, what does it actually take to be consistent?
Funny enough, I got asked this by an 11-year-old about 2 weeks ago, and I was a bit stunned, as you can imagine, halfway through long division. So the consistency, the only reason I'm probably sitting here chatting to you is because of it, to be quite honest with you. Kieran Fitz will probably be the biggest marker in my understanding of consistency. So when I was coming into the senior panel, he still is our biggest and best. But as far as the senior player, I straight away attached onto Fitz. So I was looking at physique, I was looking at his ability to train, I was looking at how he trained, when he trained, and I tried to lamp onto him as much as I could. Mike Homer was there as well at the time, and boys were in the gym and they were doing their bits, but they were doing it. They were just doing it. They were there all the time. If you went for a coffee with Fitz, it was an Americano. If you were going to have lunch, it was lunch. It was done properly. There was no wavering off the path. And I think I just got into a habitual. Clive Monaghan was another one when I was in Jarlath. He was our captain when we were in Hogan Cup mode, and he was absolutely on it, constantly on it. It was good food, good sleep, repeat. And I think I just got into a mode of it like that. I understood it, and I felt better. I knew I was performing better when I got to that. So I think it's the morning, dinner, and the evening routine. I think it's that boring. It is that boring, and it's that hard. And speaking to some of our young players, I literally said to them, it's boring, and that's what makes it hard. You have to just do it. And I think an odd break out here and there is fine, but it's the Monday to Saturday consistently boring is probably what's going to be helpful in the long run for you.
Brilliant. I've written that down. That's a great line. And that's actually someone mentioned that before. It's like, high performance is boring. It's doing the same thing over and over and over again.
Just do it better.
Exactly. Brilliant. Exactly. It sounds like you were really exposed to that. Even the kind of, you mentioned the diet and different things. Like, you were probably exposed to that probably at a time that it wasn't really that popular. Really, it's obviously big now.
It is now. Jarlath was a big part of it. Father Oliver Hughes was way ahead of his time. Again, I was so fortunate. Damien Burke was one, Clive Monaghan was another. As I said, Mike Homer and Kieran were around this time as well, and they were training. They were properly training ahead of their time. They were really, really training. And I lamped onto it, and I was getting results fairly quickly out of it. And I wanted to do what they were doing. They were playing with Galway, and I wanted to play with Galway. So this was just what you do. Very, very fortunate. As I said, right place, right time. That's all it was. And I was able to latch on to the consistency part, and they were consistently brilliant at the basics. Period of time, over a long period of time, that's going to give you an advantage whether you like it. It is boring. I found joy in it.
What did you say to the 11-year-old? What I will say is I can't wait for this 11-year-old to be about 20-something and be some elite athlete.
It must have came up at home or something. The question came up, like, why are you still playing football or something was the question. And I just said to him that I just like going training. And he said, do you like going training every evening? And I said, I do, to be honest with you. It's just nice to go training. But he brought up the word consistently. He said, Dad said, or someone said you're consistently always there, or you're always playing or something. And I just said to him, sure, I just like playing. That was it. But it was a funny question to get from an 11-year-old. You'd be surprised what they come up with.
I was going to say, he sounds like a deep thinker. All right. I'm going to move on, Gary, to the Sideline 7. It's the same 7 questions at the end of every episode. I've given you a heads up now. So
yeah, you did, yeah. It did a little bit of work.
Yeah, and I don't always give people a heads up. So question 1, what's your favourite quote?
One that came across a couple of months ago, and it's not really sporting related, but it's Oscar Wilde. It's we're all living in the gutter, but not all of us are looking at the stars.
Very good.
I like it.
Yeah, that is a good one. Question 2, best sporting event you've been to, and you pick one as a fan and one that you played in.
All-Ireland Club final. Simple. On Paddy's Day though, not in January.
Okay. I was going to ask you that.
Yeah, that's important. And All-Ireland hurling final is the event to come out to. Yeah.
Unreal. Question 3, biggest setback or challenge so far in your playing career, and how did you react to it?
I want to pick 2 in this, and one of them was an exit from a Galway panel at my peak. And the other one would be getting hurt 2 or 3 years ago at 37 years of age and having a year out and having to seriously think about putting the boots up. So then 2 would have been big in my sporting career. They're the 2 biggest ones in my sporting career for sure.
Do you mind me just asking about the leaving the Galway panel? Just what was the challenge in that? Was it just kind of, do you have regrets over that, or what's
none?
Just interested in the challenge with it?
Absolutely none. Very difficult decision to make. It was a very simple decision for me. One was high standard where I was training at home, and one wasn't high standard, and I made a decision. That was it. It was an easy one to make, to be quite honest with you. I brought a bit of flack in it, and I probably upset some people, and I since apologised, but wasn't a brilliant time, but it had to happen.
Mm-hmm. Question 4 then, your biggest achievement on or off the pitch?
Club of Ireland, Corofin. No, there's no two ways about it. What a brilliant thing. But then probably coming from where I was as a young fella to get to play for Galway was also a fair achievement.
Absolutely. Taking frees for Galway as well, I will say.
based on what I was doing as a young fella, definitely, I can tell you.
I think I didn't really hear it the first time. Have you challenged me to like a free kickoff? Is that what you said?
I'm up for it. Yeah, it has to be on video though. It has to be on video. We need to record it. Yeah.
Brilliant. I'll be down in Galway soon.
You're welcome anytime.
Looking back, what advice would you give your 18-year-old self?
Take a minute to enjoy it a small bit. I think too often I just went from one thing to another and trained my way through so many things I should be enjoying a bit more. Definitely sit back and take it in for a second and enjoy it a small bit more.
Brilliant. Dream dinner guest and why? Everyone actually cheats, so I'll change it to dream dinner party and why.
Okay, right. Just sporting context.
Either or.
Right, we're going Johan Cruyff. We're going Paddy O'Shea. And then we're going to finish it off, and we're going to go with someone like Tom Brady or someone like that.
Unreal.
So I have a couple of different bits in there, yeah.
Daddy, and are you getting a takeaway? Steak? Steak comes up a lot.
We'll go to Paddy O'Shea's in Bintry. Just to keep it simple. Probably get a steak and a few beers, yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah. Gary, final question. If your life was a book, what chapter would this be called?
I had to think about this too. As we sit here right now, we're going to call it the rebranding.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why, out of interest?
We just got to a point in life where we're going to be probably changing tact a small bit maybe, and just kind of looking at things a bit differently, different perspectives. So we'll call it the rebranding for now.
Brilliant. I'm looking forward to seeing where that takes you. Gary, thanks a million for coming on. Really appreciate it.
Really enjoyed it. Thank you very much.